You're watching Women of Strength TV with a purpose-driven woman who has a yearning deep in her soul to serve the world. Presented to you by Ange Wilcock, creator of Evolutionary Model of Well-Being, Mindfulness-Based Storytelling, and the Raw Woman Project, a businesswoman on a mission for every human on the earth to feel enough.
So welcome to this episode of Women of Strength, the place to be authentic, to be yourself. You don't have to be clean and polished or anything business-like. You just have to be you. And that's the most important thing about being a woman of strength. And I love these interviews. And I've got an amazing guest today called Bonnie Gillespie. And I'm just going to read you a bit about Bonnie because it's fascinating. And I was just saying to Bonnie while we were off air, it was bringing up all my insecurities because I'm doing these videos and she comes from a great industry. So I'll read you a little bit. So Bonnie Gillespie is living her dream by helping others figure out how to live theirs. And as a weekly columnist, remember, we're being authentic and being ourselves. She demystifies the casting process for more than 15 years. Her most popular book is Self-Management for Actors, the curriculum upon which her teaching is based. As a producer and casting director, Bonnie specializes in indie darlings. Whether casting or coaching, she is passionate about leaving the entertainment industry better than she found it. I mean, that's amazing. I'm going to ask you a little bit more about that because one question I'd love to clarify from the very, very beginning. So indie darlings, is that independent people who...
Yeah. It's more independent projects. So in casting and producing, you either have something that's come through a studio or a network or is being independently packaged with private money, and it may not have major distribution behind it. So what it really means is very low budget projects. For instance, the last film I worked on had a budget of $2.5 million, which is nothing in show business. That's the lunch table during an episode of Big Bang Theory being shot. So,
wow. Yeah. So it sounds like you're in a fascinating industry. Now, I really would love to know your story about how this came about. So obviously, it's all about being a woman of strength and a strong woman and just being ourselves. And Bonnie said off air before we started, because I always ask women, is there anything that you want to ask me? And she said, oh, it's okay if I curse. And I said, absolutely, that's you. That's who you are. If you need to do that, do that. You know, I flap around, do my hands, and don't always look at the camera. I am focusing on looking at the camera at the moment. But so Bonnie, when did your journey of Woman of Strength begin?
Gosh, you know, I would say I was born into it in that if I really try to think back to some of the earliest points of strength, I know it had to be very, very early on, having been put into the Montessori schooling system at age 2, just over 2, like 2.5, which is the youngest they'll accept someone into their educational methods. Yeah. And we were taught through the Montessori methods to be curious and to be self-starters and just always be responsible for what we begin. And so that fosters leadership from a very young age, because you're not afraid to, you know, you're not raising hands or standing in single file line or waiting until it's officially time to go to the loo or whatever. It's you are motivated by whatever stirs you, and you're encouraged to allow that. And so I think I was given permission from a very young age and a non-traditional experience in our culture here in the U.S. to go deep with some of that inherent curiosity. And that was always given a yes and in my family. And yes and is an industry phrase that we use for improvisation, that when someone comes up with an idea, we always say yes and. Meet that idea with a yes and then add something to it. And I feel like I was brought up in a place of curiosity and yes and discovering things and then seeing what I could add to them. So I think very early on this started for me.
Yeah, wow. What an amazing start to life. And so that started really, really early, as you said. So you have this innate knowledge or ability to strive for things, it sounds like. So when you come across obstacles, because having that education for a very young age, when you come across sort of challenges or obstacles in life, how has that taught you to deal with them, or has it taught you to deal with them?
Yeah, because I think when you do come at things from a place of curiosity, you don't so much even see them as obstacles. Instead, they are problems to solve. And there's something about having permission to dig in and see, is this problem something I can solve, or am I going to need outside help? Just kind of gets us at a place from the very beginning where maybe we don't see things as insurmountable. I've never come across a problem that I felt like, oh, I can't even tackle that. I know I may need a team in order to tackle it, but I know that it's just a matter of which direction I come at it to really take it on. And so I think that there's this idea of sort of how we frame obstacles from the very beginning, that even that labeling, I think maybe just was never a part of my vocabulary.
Yeah.
That it wasn't, I come home and, oh, I have these problems. It's, oh, I have these challenges, these interesting opportunities to explore my creative problem solving.
Wow, that's amazing. Like, it sounds like you just had this phenomenal childhood. And obviously not all women have been fortunate enough to have that type of childhood. I know I certainly didn't. My childhood was more about, it was problem after problem.
Yeah.
And I had to find out the solutions for myself. And that was a hard road. So what would you say, so women that haven't had that background and they want to create that curiosity in life without all the baggage that you bring with that, how do you, what advice would you give them to start being curious?
In a way, it's a bit of reparenting.
Yeah.
In a sense. And I think that the brilliance of that is you can start it at any age. You can pick any moment and say, today is the day that I'm going to stop seeing this as an insurmountable problem. And instead, I'm going to come at it from a place of curiosity and wonder and knowing that something is possible and I can maybe chip away at it. Perhaps I'm not going to topple this in one go, but maybe I can take away some of it. And if you see anything like a sort of a block of marble, and you know that there are different tools we use to create a sculpture, that you could certainly start with a hammer and chisel and really take away some of the big chunks, and then at some point you're using very fine grade sandpaper to get the shape and the softening that you want. And just knowing that there are different tools for different stages of the process, I think is something that becomes very empowering. And I would say that the way to come at it as an adult who maybe didn't have the advantage of growing up, being given permission to fail and being given permission to try, I think it really is about saying, well, then today I'm going to start fresh with this new way of thinking and relaxing that muscle that may have become overdeveloped in childhood or even in early adulthood and on into late adulthood, of saying it can't be done, or who do you think you are, or you certainly aren't capable of doing this, and just sort of rewiring some of that conversation. I believe that all things are either more practiced or less practiced in our lives. And it's not a matter of I'm bad at something, it's I'm less practiced at it. And that goes with a lot of mindset stuff. And if we can just practice more of the language we want to use on ourselves, I think we can put ourselves at a much greater advantage with anything we want to attempt in our lives.
Yeah, I totally agree. I love that phrase, relax that muscle. I mean, I love that. That's great. So, and I know I can hear women who are going to be listening to this saying, yeah, relax that muscle. How do you relax that muscle? Because I've been trying forever.
Well, in a way, it's the trying engages the muscle, if we think about it. And so it is almost, you relax the muscle by not trying. By exactly the same way you release a muscle in a physical workout. It is just a form of relaxation. And sometimes it takes, I've been in a massage before and had the massage therapist say, no, come on, relax, let it go. And she'll hit on my leg, like, come on, let it go. Cause she could feel that I've got tension that I'm not letting go. And sometimes it's just breathing into that and letting that tension fall away. And there are all sorts of different tactics we can use to relax, whether it's, tapping or meditation or taking walks or the self-love and conversations that we have with ourselves about what is possible. But again, that's there are so many different tools to come at the same block of marble to start the process.
Yeah, so true. I mean, I teach mindfulness, and one of the things that I say to my women is very much about, because it's about following that thought. It's, you try to relax, they try to relax the muscle, but the thought comes through and they follow the thought. And it's very much about just allow the thought, which is like relaxing the muscle. Allow the thought, don't place any judgment or anything on the thought. It's just a thought. And then the more we bring that into our awareness, we're just continually building that muscle to relax, and we don't follow it. So
and giving ourselves credit when we do strengthen the muscle for not following it, because it really is, it's so tempting to follow that thought. And if instead we just go, oh, there it went, there he goes, okay, and then giving ourselves so much credit for having let it go on like that and say, oh, I did a good job. And that strengthens that muscle and shows the support and encouragement that is a part of reparenting.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said before we started this interview and I read your bio, I was like, oh, so I could feel those thoughts, that thought process that, is still there. You're aware that it's there. It's like, okay, you're going to follow this or not? And it's like, actually, no, I choose not to.
and knowing it's a choice is one of the most empowering gifts we can give ourselves, is that I choose how I'm going to feel about anything at any moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And everything is about choice. And that's so important to understand, because when we know that everything is about choice, we actually understand that we are in charge of our own life, and not everybody gets that. I made a choice to do these podcasts and interviewing people, because I just love women who are out there showing up in the world and doing things. And when I made that decision, all my stuff came up, well, who are you? You've got to get it right. And then I said, actually, no, I don't. Because there's no such thing as getting it right. There's no right or wrong. It's just be who you are. Be you. And that's the most important thing, which brings me on to a question that I've had from one of my ladies, who, when you're being you and you've had this amazing upbringing, how do you sustain yourself when you have to deal with hurt or sadness? Because we do know that life is a choice, but none of us, I don't believe, go through life without dealing with some hurt or sadness or pain. So
Certainly.
How do you deal with that?
It's very much like an exposed nerve on a nerve ending on a broken tooth, where you get to run your tongue over the spot to continue feeling the pain, or you get to avoid feeling that pain and deal with treating the issue. And I believe that any of the horrific things that happen in our lives, and we all are going to experience extreme pleasure, extreme pain, that's part of what the life journey is, comes down to how much longer we want to continue touching that painful place. And I have gotten very well practiced in not continuing to spend time playing that tape over and over again, or running my tongue over my tooth if it's got a place that is causing pain, because I realize that is me choosing to go back to that moment. And I remember there was I had been raped as a teenager, and I had not told anyone, and I spent many years dealing with a lot of shame and just maladaptive ways of dealing with what had happened, because I didn't have the proper tools for framing something that was so unexpected.
Yeah.
And I remember there was a thing on my college campus that was called Take Back the Night years later, where women were marching through the streets and saying, you know, that we deserve to be able to go where we want to go and dress how we want to dress and experience our lives and not be seen as potential for that sort of attack. And I remember feeling like, oh, I have to go get up and be a part of that. And I had never before even talked about it, much less mobilized myself with a group. And the moment that I just said, oh, I need to be done running this over in my head and having this be a block in every relationship that has come since then, and then having that be that surprise moment of, why is this relationship falling apart? Oh, because I haven't yet dealt with something that was pretty big. And to have that moment where I was actually interviewed by someone in the media while on this march, and I remember the reporter saying, you know, why are you marching today? And I said, we have a choice anytime that we're victimized to stop being victimized after that moment, or to continue being victimized ongoing by our response to what happened. And I realized that I had chosen to stay in a victimized place over one incident for years. And I have seen a pattern of obviously many people making similar choices and then deciding, well, that's my life and that's the story of my life. Yeah. And I think that, again, it comes down to our choice and taking that choice back and saying, I'm going to be done telling the story of the victim, and instead I'm going to tell the story of the survivor, and not to then become, oh, this is now my platform and I'm going to always talk about this. It's actually not something I talk about much at all, because I don't feel that it has defined or shaped me, because I don't carry it around with me in the same way that I once did. And I think all of that is just a deeper exploration of the choice that we have in anything that we experience in life.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love that you were able to differentiate between, actually, I want to be the survivor and not the victim. And that takes, well, I believe, you might tell me something different, but I believe that actually takes a lot of courage to stand into that power of who you are, because it is part of our story, isn't it? All our experiences in life are part of our story. And so when you made that decision that you were going to step into the survivor, move out of victim and into survivor, and you went on that march and had that interview with a journalist, how did that feel, you know, being in that place?
At first, it was very scary because it was new. Yeah. And I had to correctly label it. And a big part of my work that I do with actors and creatives is about properly labeling the experiences that we're having and the feelings that we're having, because I think that we can skew the experience just by labeling things incorrectly and giving away a lot of power. And so I had to realize, well, I'm terrified having this conversation right now, because I am stepping out and talking about something that I have kept very quiet. And that is a very bold and brave thing. But it was also my way of drawing a line in the sand and saying, this is now going to be past me and ongoing future me in relationship to this issue. And I only go back over that line that I've drawn by choice. And so once I got over the initial fear of, oh gosh, what are people going to think of me? Because that was the first thing, is what are people going to think of me? How are they going to define me? Are they going to feel sorry for me? Are they going to judge me? There were all these questions. And I said, well, it doesn't really matter what anybody is thinking about me or saying about me, because look at what I was saying about myself and thinking about myself. And that was far more damaging. Yeah. And once I took the reins on that, I feel that it sort of made irrelevant what anybody else thought or said or thinks or says about me on that or any other issue in life, because I have a very solid center and set point of who I am and what I'm about, and knowing what things define me versus flavor me. And that distinction is a big one, because I've had a lot of experiences in my life that I would say they've flavored me. They are part of the seasoning of who I am, but no one experience has defined me. And I think that we tend to give away a lot of our power and our strength by letting one particular issue or a series of particular things define us in ways that may not be as healthy for us as if we instead let them flavor us.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Yeah, flavorous. Let's add some, that there's all different seasonings going into who we are. I love that, because we are a big melting pot, aren't we? And we do, we do choose what we decide to put in that pot. So I love that. And for me, that does take that inner strength, because like you said, it's so true about what will people think. Well, it is irrelevant, because what we tell ourselves is actually far worse than anyone would ever think about us. So
always,
when we understand that, it is that place of, we can move on from this. Yeah. So I love it. You're giving us some great gems. Thank you. Now there's another great question that one of my women asked, because some of us live in a world where it can be quite challenging, and life feels really heavy and really difficult. So one of the questions that she's asked is, what makes you laugh out loud?
Oh my gosh, so many things. It's interesting. When my husband and I married, we basically had two, and vows are it's not even the right word. We had two pieces of commitment that we gave one another. And the first one was always trust that we have each other's best interest at heart. And that was so that even if we're fighting, we trust that it's because we want the better version of one another. And we come from a place of just deep knowing that we're always looking out for each other's best interests, because then that allows us a great deal of freedom in everything else that happens in our lives. Yeah. And then the second vow basically is always go for the funny. And it's because if we can't laugh, if I set you up to take a shot at me and you don't take a shot, I judge you, because I'm like, I set you up to make a joke at my expense. Take the shot. Yep. And so when I think of things that make me laugh out loud, it's so much of my everyday, because we have woven into our partnership it's something that we both have felt is incredibly important just in life, which is to find things to crack up about. And whether it's a crazy neighbor going off on like how mad she is at the mailman, and I'm listening to her just ranting, like she's crazy upset, and I am laughing because it is comical, all the way down to, my cat doing something silly and playful, and that bringing me joy. Like there are just things that will float into my brain that will make me laugh out loud. And my husband will say, what? And I'll say, well, I can share the story, but it really is just something that I'm playing up here. Because I do think that laughter and that sense of joy is such a vital part of our life's work and enjoying the journey, because really that is what it's all about. Anything that we accomplish or achieve is not fully joyfully appreciated if we are not in a place of joy. And so I find that laughter, especially being in the entertainment industry, is something that I get exposed to an awful lot of, and I lean into that as much as I can. Yeah,
cool. Well, and what about, so you spoke about your husband. So how does a strong woman operate in a relationship, in a marriage?
It's interesting because I always thought I wouldn't be the marrying type. Obviously, as mentioned before, I had early life experiences that made it easy for me to default out of relationships or bail when things started getting too serious. And I was pretty convinced that I was going to just always go it alone. And I was fine with that because I feel very self-sufficient and I get what I need out of my relationships at whatever amount of intimacy I allow. So I wasn't ever concerned over much with that. And when my husband and I met, I remember him saying, you're not going to run me off. And I said, oh yeah, I am. I am an expert at running people off. And we'll get to a point where it's too close, too scary. And I can assure you, I will run you off. I will do all, I know my scripts really well. We met when I was 30. So I know all my things, and I know what I will do to run you off, and I will. And he said, I can't wait to prove you wrong. You are never going to run me off. And I know that I am incredibly lucky to have connected with someone who has no interest in being run off by me. I can't scare him off. I can't be so strong that he feels emasculated. I can't be so needy that he won't be giving. Like he just is in it for life. And I am learning, and we're together 16 years next month. I am learning that, thank you, that I am also in it for life. And I never thought that would happen. And I think a lot of that came from having a really great sense of self and not feeling like I needed to be completed. And I think a lot of people, especially strong women, have this weird little voice that's telling them, but I need something more. I need completion. And that almost belies the strength, because if you're truly strong, you know you are enough. Yeah. And then in knowing you're enough, you attract someone who also knows you're enough. And there's not any goal that we have to complete one another or make each other into something that we need. We just really have a blast together. And that's what makes us such a successful couple. And we live and work together. So we are together 20 hours a day. Wow. We built my business together, and he works for me. So it's a lot of personal time together.
Yeah, and it's great because I think, like I got married, this is the third last marriage, and I set myself up, prior to this marriage, it was always, I'm going to do whatever I can to sabotage, and you're not going to step up and stop me from doing it.
Right.
And, so 2 disastrous marriages with amazing men, with my third marriage and with my husband now, it was, I'd gone into that whole marriage. I knew who I was incredibly strong. I didn't need anyone. I wanted a marriage, and we have an amazing marriage, and we push each other. We do push each other's buttons in the sense that because we want to continue to grow.
Absolutely.
We're not reliant on each other. We do our own thing. We do things together. Mm-hmm. And what I love about being strong is that I know what I want. I know what my life looks like. I know what I want in my relationship, but I also feel safe to be vulnerable. And I think
very
that's
much
the whole thing, people think, oh, strong women, you're not vulnerable, you're not caring, you don't have a big heart, you can do everything on your own. And it's bullshit. We can't. What we are in our strength, I believe, in terms of me being a strong woman, is that vulnerability to say, hey, I'm not coping with this today. And I don't feel a lesser person for saying that. So how does your husband deal with that when you have those days? Because obviously we all have those days.
I think it's more about communication than anything else, because it works both ways, and it works even outside of my marriage into my work with other producers or with actors, the clients that I have. It is of vital importance that I am clear about my boundaries. Yeah. And sometimes that's, hey, today's got to be a self-care day. So I have to be able to tell my team, y'all are in charge of all communication today, because I got to tap out and put myself in the spa or in bed or just go for a walk. But also it's about not letting it get to a crisis point before setting those boundaries, and getting incredibly clear in maintenance level self-care. Because I think a lot of people, especially if they're trying to be strong, think that there's no time off, there's no rest. Yeah. And the strongest people wall off beautifully their self-care time. And we're really good about taking breaks and saying, this is where the line is. And that, clients aren't going to be able to reach me by text 24 hours a day, because it doesn't matter what dollar amount you've spent getting to work with me. You don't buy 24/7 access, because that doesn't exist for anybody at any price.
Yeah.
And I think that that's where, especially as business owners, we can get a little wonky in our boundaries, because we feel like we have to give so much and we have to be so available. And especially once we do bold things like raising our rates and things like that, we go, oh, I have to make sure that I'm constantly available. And it's like, then you're not modeling the kind of behavior you want your clients to have. Absolutely. Which is those healthy relationships.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that, because it's very much, that's me, and that's what I'm always saying. And I say that to my clients, the boundary is, because they say, well, boundary, what's a boundary? And it's actually, it's the line where I end and you begin. It's, this is my space and this is your space. This is me and this is you. And we have to be really, really clear around that. And I see that as a core strength of being a strong woman, because putting those boundaries in place does take courage, and it takes commitment, because if we don't do that, what happens is all the monkey mind comes in, or what's someone going to think because I've had to reschedule today, or oh my goodness, I put my prices up. For me, that doesn't exist in my mind anymore. It might momentarily, but I strengthen that muscle, as you call it, and it's like, oh yeah, there it is. Yeah, well, it's actually irrelevant now. It doesn't matter. So I love to hear that, because when we talk about being a woman of strength and being the strong woman, I love to hear the fact that you also, there's that other side. There is that balance. There is that vulnerability. There's days when you go, actually, I just want to, disconnect from the world. It's not I'm disconnecting from anyone. It's just I'm going back into me, because that's so important.
Well, because if we don't fill the well, there is nothing to give to others.
No. And so what would your key message be to women out there who are still going around and around on this merry-go-round of wanting to be everything to everyone, but wanting to be strong, not knowing where that balance is? How do we center ourselves to get back to that place of strength?
Gosh, one of the best things I heard, and not too long ago heard this and loved it so much, is that if you were to look at the population in thirds and divide the population that way of the entire planet, and realize that a third of the population is made up of your stark raving mad fans. They absolutely love you, everything you do. They are ride or die. They're right there by you. You could do no wrong. They want all the emails. They want all the contact. They absolutely adore. They're going to buy every book. They're going to watch every episode. That's the third. And that's a third of the population of the planet. You just haven't met all of them yet. Yeah. That's really great. Then there's a third of the population that's, I'm aware of you and I could take you or leave you. Like, I'm not mad at you, but I'm not that into you. And okay. And then there's the third of the population that doesn't get you. They don't understand you. They're not interested in trying to understand you. The haters live in that third. And what I find is that we spend a lot of our energy focused on this 2/3 of the meh and the non-lovers. Yeah. Because that's the larger part of the population, rather than feeding that third of the population that is completely into what we are doing as we are. And so to cure the trying to be everything to everyone, it comes to being very quick to identify correctly. Into me, not into me, never going to be into me. Yeah. And we stop trying to convert the latter two. And as soon as we stop trying to convert the latter two, we find that the fan base grows because the people who are in it talk about it to people that are outside our reach. Yeah. And we start to then realize that 1/3 of the population is actually much larger than we thought, because it reaches beyond just our inner circle of those folks that are aware of us, which is what we're looking at when we look at that other 2/3 too much.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. And
isn't that great?
It's exactly how I live my life. And it's like, and women say to you, you're so confident, you're this, you're that, you never put up with any crap. And I go, well, because I choose to focus on, that third, the people that love me. And then you get the question from the haters, or the people that aren't so into you, is that then they start labeling you as arrogant.
Mhm.
as opposed to confident. And I love that too, because I'm
Absolutely.
like, wow, your shit's showing up. I love it.
Yeah, I'm like, well, I've really triggered you because you're over here not into me and you're still paying attention to me.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe you're secretly into me.
Oh, I just love it. I just, yeah, I love it. And I was so inspired to, when I wrote my article, it was very much, this is me, and this
So
is
good.
just who I am, and I'm gonna share it.
It was so good, Angie. It was a real rallying cry. It was really empowering and wonderful.
Yeah, and it just came from my heart. This is me, who I am right now, and I love who I am, and I don't believe I'm arrogant. I believe I'm confident. I'm out there with all my cheerleaders. That's where I want to be. Why would I want to be with the other 2/3? Let someone else worry about that.
Well, I call this, we're hosting a party. And if I'm hosting a party and you come into my party and look around and then go, oh, no, I'm not into it, and you leave, and I leave my party to chase you down the road and find out why you left, I'm a horrible host to all these wonderful people who are gathered at my party. And I think we do that so often. And if instead we can just say, whatever, maybe they went to go get ice, they'll be back or not. But I am here as the host of this party. And that helps, I think, so much of the mindset that comes with even paying attention to that other 2/3.
Yeah, I love it. I love that. It's great. I'm going to use that with my clients.
Please do.
Amazing.
Pass it on.
Now, just tell us a little bit more about what you do. So, the amazing work that you do and how you got into that. If you could tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, I started out as a kid actor. I was very young and started pursuing a professional acting career, and loved it, and was very supported by my mom, who was raising me on her own. And she said, as long as it doesn't cut into your grades, you can do it. And she would have been the same if I were into, student politics or athletics or anything. As long as my outside school pursuits didn't cause grades to plummet, she was on board for it. But that meant running around a lot and hitting auditions and then rehearsals, and of course, then being available for the project. So I did miss a lot of school, but I was a very good student and had been, due to that, I think, early Montessori experience. So even when I was mainstreamed into public school, I was able to stay ahead of all of my studies and everything, which was great. When I moved out to Los Angeles to pursue an acting career, I quickly learned that LA is the Super Bowl of acting. And it is a very different pursuit than what I was used to in a smaller market. I grew up in Atlanta, which is a nice sized market for acting. It's just tiny by comparison to a place like Los Angeles, where all the entertainment is created for the rest of the world. When you take a look at the numbers, it's just such a huge percentage of it is going on here. And so I thought I was just going to be able to transfer over to LA and start working at the same level I had worked previously. And then it became clear that's not so much the case. So I started taking on little survival jobs to support my acting pursuit. And one of the many jobs I took on was interviewing casting directors. And I'd gone to college for journalism because I was like, well, if I'm going to get a degree, let me get it in something to fall back on if the acting doesn't work. And journalism felt like a good fit for the way my brain operates and my level of curiosity and enjoyment of writing, but also of media. It allowed me to kind of still do the entertainment industry part of things while learning about communications law and libel and slander and all sorts of things that were just fascinating for me as a student. And it turned out that as I interviewed these casting directors, who are the people who populate all the projects, I was getting an edge as an actor because I was learning things that actors are never taught. Actors are not taught what to expect in an audition because it's basically a job interview, and their thought is, you'll figure it out when you get in here. And I kept going, well, gosh, the actors are going to be better if we can give them this information before they're in this room at this crucial auditioning moment. And I realized about 6 months into writing for one of the local papers, all these interviews with casting directors, that acting had been the bait to get me to LA so I could do the thing that I was actually meant to do, which is demystify the process of the acting business and talk about the actual business side of it and all the logistics that come before the craft. and that help you manage taking a career from those early stages of acting into a thriving professional career where you become known. And because this isn't really taught. And so it's a niche that I pretty much carved out for myself. And it happened quite organically as I spent time talking with these casting directors. And then I became one because someone that I had interviewed said, I think you've got a good brain for this. You might want to try casting. And I said, I don't know about that. I really like the freelance lifestyle. I like that every day's different. You know, it was always acting and then writing. And I don't know if I want the like rolling around on a plastic pad behind a desk lifestyle of somebody working at a network. And she said, well, you know, try working for me for a few weeks and see if you like it. And I did, obviously, because in 2003, I started casting and then eventually got into producing where I could help bring the money together to help finance some of the projects that I really wanted to invest in, seeing the stories get told. So I've now authored several books. The most popular one is Self-Management for Actors. It's in its 4th edition, 3rd printing. It's a top seller, and now it is it's so cool because now it's a textbook in colleges and universities around the world where they are now teaching the business side of a creative career. And I'm so happy because that's what I would have wanted, was for this to get in the hands of these beautiful creative people early on in their career so that they can know going in what is really going to be expected of them, because it's not just the craft. It is running a small business, and that is something that is not often taught. And so that is what my work is all empowering these amazing storytellers so that they can have a lot more joy in a journey that is often seen as filled with rejection and heartache. And I, of course, try to help them relabel that because that's giving away an awful lot of power.
Yeah, fantastic. So that's amazing. Like amazing that this book is in universities and colleges, you know, teaching that. I
love it.
Because so for you, what's next for you? Because like that's an amazing achievement in itself. So what's next in terms of your business and pushing you forward?
Yeah, my business growth in the past just few months actually has included a lot more of the woo-woo, as the label goes. I was raised in a New Age household. My mom was a world-renowned astrologer and was very well known. And I grew up, you know, with people making fun of me because my mom was a witch, and you know, all the different things that you start to have to buffer yourself against growing up because you want to fit in, and you've got this very strange, unusual thing going on at home where, you know, instead of coming home crying about bullies picking on me and having my mom say, oh, honey, they're just jealous, she would say, oh, honey, your Venus is afflicted in Leo. And I would go, oh, okay. You know, of course, that's why I'm being treated this way, because of that aspect in my chart. It just was a very different upbringing. But so I've always infused a little woo-woo into my work, and even the earliest editions of the book and my columns that I wrote back in the 90s, you can see tiny bits woven in, but I say I was hiding medicine in the ice cream because I didn't want to come at anybody from a place of spirituality and law of attraction because people can sometimes be closed off to that. Yeah. And what I've noticed, especially in the past few months, is more and more of my clients are craving it. They're seeking me out for a more centered and more spiritual attack for their path. And they are unapologetic in asking for it. And I am unapologetic in offering it. And so what's next for me is getting a little more out about weaving in the spirituality to all of the work that I've always done, and now being less medicine in the ice cream about it and more like, here's a heaping spoonful of it, baby, and you're going to love it. Because the people who are asking for it are a part of that third that are really happy to see me leaning into this.
Yeah, I mean, they're your cheerleaders, aren't they? They're the ones that are there saying, hey, you've got what I want and I want to be part of this. And I love it. It's amazing. And we are, you know, we are changing. People are understanding this more, you know, from sometimes people got to understand it from an intellectual perspective and what with neuroscience and all what science knows now, you know, people are sort of, oh, okay, there's something in this. So, you know, I've always lived my life. I never had spiritual parents growing up. If anything, it was dead opposite. And that sort of pushed me down that path, because it was like, well, no, this isn't life. Life is more, it's greater than this. There's something greater than us. And so I love that you're weaving that into your work, and your client group are asking for it. So that's amazing. Now, I'd love to finish off with you just giving our amazing women that are going to be listening and watching this one little gem that they can take away and start to use to do whatever from today on in, to keep continuing to step into their strength.
Okay. This is actually something that is new for a course that I created that is in its very beginnings. It's called Get in Gear for the Next Tier, with the idea being you want to move to the next tier, and getting gear for the next tier requires almost creating a more fertile soil so that you can have all the right seeds, but if you're planting them in soil that's shit and not going to support the growth, you can't actually get to the place you want to go. And I'm finding everyone who's experienced this course is saying this is the nugget that changes everything for them. And it is understanding that there are basically stages of believing I am enough.
Yeah.
And when we are at a very low stage, and in my description of it, we've got 5 stages. If you are in stage 1, you don't believe you're enough, and you're certain you're a fraud, and that everybody is aware that you're a fraud, and you're just hoping to hide because you so don't want them to call you out for you being the fraud that you are, all the way up to stage 5, which is I know I'm enough, and I am so busy living my I am enoughness that I can't even be bothered to notice what anybody else might be saying about how enough I am because of where I sit with that knowing. And I would say the takeaway that I would want for your audience is to please start leaning toward really trusting I am enough, because everything else stems from that. Yeah. If you can honor that you are enough and you don't need outside validation because somewhere in there in like level 3 is I am enough, but boy, I like it when there's outside confirmation letting me know I'm enough, and then that's me looking at the bestseller list and seeing where my book is on it. I know I'm enough, but boy, I like it when Amazon agrees.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I don't need Amazon to agree in order to know that I am enough, which is what then takes me beyond 3 and up to 5. And so I would say find what those levels are for yourself. And rather than ever beating yourself up for being at a lower level, just try to lean in toward things that help you move toward the higher levels. Because we a lot of times see change as something that is a flip of a switch, and we get mad at ourselves when we can't flip the switch. And I like to see it as the turning of a dial. And we're just trying to turn that dial up ever so slightly so that we can get more toward that knowing that I am enough. And then having that is going to make everything else work a lot more smoothly.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Thank you so much. I could talk to you for hours.
It's fun. I'm enjoying this. I love your questions.
I love it. Oh, thank you so much. And thank you, for your nugget, your gem, because I'm sure, our audience are just going to love that. And like my mission, I don't know if you found out anything about me, but my mission is for everyone on the planet to feel enough. And that's exactly it. So it just ties in perfectly. So
I'm so glad.
So much. And I wish you well on the next part of your journey and what you're doing, because it sounds amazing. And we will keep in touch.
Yes, most definitely. Thank you, Ange. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Remain real, authentic, and whole. Be yourself and continue to follow your dreams. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you next time on Woman of Strength TV.